Yes. Last time we're talking about the Tazria and Metzora, and we're talking about the exile and the redemption. And this Torah portion comes to tell us that really essentially the exile that we're in, the concealment of God, the concealment of our identity, in a way it is tremendously high, coming from a high source, just as Sefirat did, just as the spiritual leprosy did. What's so high? What's so good about it? It says because it's really tremendously high aspects of our soul or of reality of God. It's just so high we can't take it. We can't take it, and the reason we can't take it is because we have certain imperfections in our personalities, and our consciousness, and our understanding, in our connection to God, in our deeds and our actions and our feelings. And those imperfections the exile brings out and forces us to connect to the essence of our soul. What's the essence of your soul? The essence of your soul is your value of life, your feeling of potential, that you can be positive in all situations. You can look for the positive in every situation. You can bring out the positive in every situation. You can change your attitude to appreciate the positive. So it brings out the essence of what your soul is. Says the Rebbe, that's also the whole idea of the month of Iyar. What's the month of Iyar? The month of Nisan, God does everything for us. But the month of Iyar seems to be sort of the opposite. We have to do everything on our own, but that's a very good thing. That we have to do work from below. We have to do all that we can. And the Rebbe stressed, the Rebbe stressed that that what do we have to do now? What's our work? Our work is to bring Mashiach. That's all we have to do. And basically everything is finished. Said the Rebbe, basically everything is finished. Maybe certain small things have to be brought out. And Mashiach himself is called Metzora. He himself is called a spiritual leper. And the reason is because he, first of all, worries about all of the imperfections that are in the Jewish people, and he feels all this imperfection in the Jewish people, and he feels it all the time, that the Jewish people do not correct this. He feels it, so it says he bears all of the sins, all of the shortcomings of the generation, and that's the whole thing that we said of Metzora, is to reveal the shortcomings, the blemishes that are in our personalities and our attitudes and that's essentially what the whole idea of Chassidut does. What does the idea of Chassidut do? As long as a person has no idea whatsoever what God is and what good is, and so therefore a person always can justify himself and think that he's okay, and think that he's the king and that he's the best. I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is a good example, but I'll give you the answer. When I was in university, I learned in university, and you were forced to take. I was in the humanities, so you had to take a language. I could care less, really. I cared nothing about university. I was not interested in the subjects, and that's why I became a philosophy major. I thought it was the most vague thing in the world, and it was. I was right, and. But you had to take language. That was part of, humanities. You had to take language, which ended up probably being the only semi-practical thing that I took. And I had a teacher. The teacher taught, and he was praising me. He thought it was the greatest. He thought it was the best. And it ended up that he was not normal. For some reason, he took a liking to me. I don't know what it was, but at the end they fired him because he was simply not a normal human being. But a new teacher came along. And, he started teaching, and I got like all A's in Spanish, I thought it was really great. He came and he said, "You're awful. You're terrible. You're the worst one in the class." So as soon as the truth came, all of a sudden I realized that I didn't know, it at all. It ended up, I didn't take much of an interest in Spanish, so I didn't improve myself very much, or if at all. I don't really remember what the outcome of it was. I think I got by because but and the fact of the matter is that when there's the good, the true good is not revealed. So then you can't improve yourself. And you think that you're 100%. Okay, Spanish is not an essential for life, but life is an essential for life. A person wants to live. He doesn't want to be, no one wants to be fooled, right? No one wants to go through life thinking that, he bought the Brooklyn Bridge or something like that for $5. And the whole thing is a big lie. So what difference does it make how good you feel, unless your goal is just to feel good? But if you're a businessman, so you didn't really buy the Brooklyn Bridge. It didn't really happen. You might believe that you did. The same thing in the world. If God is not revealed, so you might think that you're that you're purified and that you're going to go to heaven or whatever, and that's the goal, is to go to heaven, whatever. But as soon as you find out the truth, that the goal is not at all to go to heaven. The goal is to make this world a good place. And the fact is, you're not revealing even 1/100th of your potential to do so. And all the time that you're patting on yourself on the back and think that, whatever I think is good and whatever I feel is good and whatever this. So you're just fooling yourself. And as soon as good is revealed, then you can start fixing yourself up. You can start, and that's what the idea of Sefirat is, revealing, because such good is revealed. So all of a sudden you see what has to be fixed up. It says the Rebbe that's the whole idea of Sefirat HaOmer, that you're counting. And especially, okay, now I think this is where we got up to. Now we can also add up, we can also continue the kasha zeh imios imayom miyuchad b'Sefirat HaOmer. What is it? Malchut shebetiferet. Malchut shebetiferet. This is actually going to be, I think, next week. It's not this week. No, 1 second. We are now. What sphere are we on now? Not Malchut shebetiferet, is it? 1 minute. Let me get this over here. Yeah. No, now we are on. Yes, that's right. That's what we're going into, the third. Malchut shebetiferet. Is that right? I think it's a 1 week off of what back then, the date, could that be the date and the portion of the week was 1 day off. Let me see. No, it wasn't. This is exactly the way it was this year. That's very good. Okay. So the first week we count Chesed, the second week we count Gevur, and the third week, that's what we're going into, is Tiferet. And this Shabbat is going to be Malchut Shebetiferet. Exactly right, because you count all the 7 Sefirot. Is that correct, what I'm saying? In any case, when the Rebbe spoke about it, was Malchut Shebetiferet. But that corresponds to the 7 emotional traits which are in God and which are in us. In the 3rd chapter of the Tanya, it's explained very briefly. All right. So Malchut should be Tiferet. It starts off with Chesed should be Tiferet and Gevura should be Tiferet, and it ends up with Malchut should be Tiferet. Malchut should be Tiferet. What does it mean? Tiferet is beauty, balance. Malchut is kingship. Kingship is the lowest of all the 7 attributes, but it's also the highest of the coming attributes. In other words, Malchut is the lowest of a higher level. Malchut. The lowest of a higher, lowest of any level. But Malchut of Tiferet, for instance, that's higher than the aspect of Chesed, which is of the next Sefirah, right? The Netzach. Ubehektim, Sefirat HaOmer, when we're counting Sefirat HaOmer, we talked about this, counting the Sefirat HaOmer, from Chesed of Chesed until Malchut Sheba Malchut, from the highest of the high of the 10 Sefirot, which is the kindness, love aspect of love, to kingship of kingship. Nichlalim are included all of the types of service of God. Okay, should I explain this again briefly? Very briefly, I'll explain. Sefirat HaOmer is 49 days. 49 days because we purify, we're supposed to refine, at least examine our 7 emotional attributes of serving God: love, fear, beauty, victory, surrender, connection, and kingship. How those exactly work out in day-to-day life, for another time, we'll talk about it. But basically, we should know that these are 7 aspects of serving God. And each one of them contains 7 sub aspects. In other words, love can be broken down into 7 categories, the same categories as we had before, but now we can apply those 7 categories to each one of these 7 character traits. So as a result, we have 7 characteristics of chesed, which is in chesed, gevura, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, and malchut of chesed. And the same thing is with gevura, and same thing is with tiferet, same as with all of them. That comes out in the end to be 49. And the 50th day is the holiday of Shavuot. So when we finish the third week is Malchut should be Tiferet. That's how we end. So what is Malchut? Malchut means kingship, rulership, action, getting into the world, the lowest aspect, the finality. And Tiferet means beauty, balance. So what does this mean? In the Sefirat HaOmer, when we count Chesed, Sheba Chesed, and Malchut, Sheba Malchut, Nichlalim are included, Kol Inyani Avoda, all the ways of serving the creator of the universe. Of serving the creator. Okay, so serving the creator is not just relegated to the synagogue or when you're praying to him or doing holy things. Praying to the creator is in every moment of your life. I'm serving the creator is in every moment of your life and everything that you do. Dealing in your business, telling a joke, taking a rest, eating your meal. Everything can be done with the intention of doing it the way the creator wants you to do it. Because the creator is like his name, that's what he is. He's creating everything all the time, and he cares about everything. All he wants us to do is, instead of thinking about ourselves all the time and being natural about thinking of ourselves, to think about, hey, we're creations, I'm a creation, and I'm very grateful to my creator. And I can just do everything that I want to do, all of my natural life, but I have to do it with the creator in mind and not to make any excuses. That means I have to really love the creator, really fear the creator, and really see the beauty of the creator and express the beauty of the creator, etc. So in everything that I do, especially if it's a Jew talking about doing the Torah and the commandments, that's pure serving God. And that has to be also done with all of your being. And this is with the whole world. After we finish counting the Omer, so we say that in the merit of that I have fixed myself up and trying to correct myself, that this will bring a big flow of blessing to the world. Because again, when you do what God wants, God gets pleasure from that. Right? That makes no sense. But on the other hand, it makes no sense that we're created that way also. Where did we get everything that we've got? Right? Where did you get your eyes and your nose and your mouth from? Where did you get them, and where are you getting them now? Right? It's from God. So where do you get your power of pleasure and your desires? You got them also from God. God created you in his image. So if you have desires and you have eyes and so God also has those things in a different way we can't understand, but the fact is he has. He's not limited to being unlimited. He says, therefore, when we do what God wants, it makes a big happiness of God and all of the worlds. The creator is happy and the whole creation feels it. By means of this, will come the future redemption. There won't be any exile after it. Like we say, we say that God should return the holy temple back to where it was. That's part of the prayer we say. In other words, here the Rebbe is saying, how do you bring Mashiach? By fixing up your personality. Fixing up your attitude, your connection to Jews, your connection to God and to other Jews and to the Torah and to the world. Kapeshuto. In addition to what the rabbis say, that it says Memachras Yom Tov. Okay. Sha'az then Shabbosos Heim Tamimos Kamei Breshis. Then all of the Shabbat, 7 Shabbatot Tamimot. It says we're counting 7 complete weeks. Then the weeks, the time will be complete, just like it was in the beginning when God created the world. That it begins on Sunday, Echad b'Shabbos, and it ends up on Shabbat. Even since the Siyam call it Shavua, since the end of all of the week is in Malchut. How do we end up the week? Shabbat is called Malchut. Malchut sheba Chesed, Malchut sheba Gevura, Malchut sheba Tiferet. Ideally, it's supposed to be the finishing of every set of 7 in counting the Omer is Malchut. Also, the end of every week is Malchut Shabbat. And Shabbat is connected to the future redemption. Why is Shabbat connected to the future redemption? Because Shabbat is God's day. Shabbat, you're not supposed to do any, productive work. You just appreciate the ultimate producer, God. That's the day of Shabbat, what it's supposed to be. And that's what the future redemption is going to be. It's going to be appreciating the Creator all the time. But unlike the future redemption, right, Shabbat, we don't do any work. In the future redemption, we will do work. You'll go to your job, you'll light fires, you'll do everything that are forbidden on Shabbat. But you'll feel the Shabbat in those mundane activities. Everything's going to be Shabbat. That's what it means. Yom Shekula Shabbat. Everything's going to be Shabbat. Yom Shekula Shabbat. Menucha l'chai olamim. Umudgash biyoter, and it's stressed even more the idea of Malchut, the kingship. Malchut should be Tiferet. Malchut is the true idea of Malchut is the Mashiach, the kingship of King David. But Takfa, but Shleimosa will feel that the kingship of King David, that King David is the Melech of Mashiach. Shall you know that by means of the Mashiach, Tidgala will be revealed the kingship of God in all the world. Like it says, that God will be the ruler. And God will be the ruler over the whole world. What does this mean? Malchut, as it's relevant to redemption, Malchut, kingship, is the king Mashiach. And that indicates al hachozek, the power, the hatokef, and the, how do you say, the assertiveness, the inyan geula of the redemption. Lelo hit chashvut b'benios b'ikuvim, that there's nothing will prevent it. Or like the rabbis say, Omer Malka Akatora, like the king, it says, if the king says something, you can uproot a mountain. Shafilu har, even a mountain, tokef, a menaged, powerful opposition. Ne'akar will be uprooted. Lamakom achera, to another place by means of a king. If you look at Psalms, the book of Psalms that King David wrote, as you see, the King David had a lot of problems. I always wanted to, but I didn't. How many of the Psalms, I would imagine that it's more than half, King David is praying to God for help, urgent SOS help from all of his enemies. And King David's life was replete with enemies from the very beginning of his life, very beginning, right? He was an outcast when he was born. His father rejected him, King David. And finally, when he was chosen to be the king by the prophet Samuel, Shmuel, as his father didn't believe it. His father couldn't. And then after he was born, after he was made king, so he had to be made king in secret. That King Saul wouldn't hear about it. And King Saul hated him, wanted to kill him, ran after him, sent soldiers after him to kill him. And after David was finally made king, so then there was trouble from within his house and trouble from his enemies. He had to fight his enemies all the time. Whether we're talking about the non-Jewish enemies that were in the land of Israel that he had to fight, or whether we're talking about the Philistines, says he had to make war with the Philistines all the time. They were fighting. Whether that was also with David and Goliath, how you say Goliath, with the Philistine, the different enemies that King David had. And then after that, there was the enemies that he had from inside, his own son, the Shimi ben Gera, and the dog and Achitophel, and all this. So King David is crying out, praying, God, troubles, problems, right and left he had. In fact, it says one of the reasons he couldn't build the holy temple, that he had to leave it over for his son, was because he spilled a lot of blood. He was a man of war, and he killed a lot of people. Okay, he killed them in war; it was justified, but still he killed people. It says he couldn't make his whole life was fighting. But the Melech HaMashiach won't have all these oppositions. He'll jump right over them, even the biggest oppositions there can possibly be. Why? How can it possibly be? Lo shayach metziyus shel manari, it won't be. There won't be any opposition to the Mashiach. Well, how can that possibly be? There won't be. I mean, nowadays, just look at the Jewish people, right? Everyone is against the Jewish people. The Jewish people themselves are against the Jewish people. The Jewish people themselves are against, half of them, who knows how many, what percentage of them, are not religious. And a big percentage of those people are anti-religious. The fact is, I don't know if it's so bad as it used to be. Maybe this is a bit of an exaggeration. The Lubavitcher Rebbe has really spread out the ideas that of what God really is and what Judaism really is to all, starting with the children especially. I remember in Israel, like 40 years ago, something like that. I was here 40 years ago, 45 years ago. There used to be a lot of children that did not know what Shema Yisrael. I saw them. I saw children kibbutzim. I spoke to children from kibbutz and from these cities, like in the kibbutz areas, and they didn't know how to say Shema Yisrael. You say, okay, kids, repeat after me. Shema. I'll say Shema Yi. Yisro, maybe one kid would figure out, Yisrael, right? Hashem, everyone would say Hashem, Ado. They didn't know. They simply didn't know. I asked the teachers, these kids really don't Shema Yisrael. No, they've never heard of it before. They don't know what it is. Nowadays, there's not that in Israel. Everybody knows what Shema Yisrael is because the Rebbe sent his emissaries around to gather children up and say with them the 12, Shema Yisrael's 12 sentences. Shema Yisrael, the Bereshit Bara Elokim, so that they know exactly at least what it says in the Chumash. They should know what it says in the Torah. So I don't think it's so anywhere near as bad as it was even 30, even 20 years ago. So little by little, the opposition is going away. And even in Israel, interestingly, in Israel, those people who are against the religious people, they say, but Chabad is different. Chabad is different. How is Chabad different? Chabad is religious people just as religious as everybody else, right? And our goal is certainly to make the other groups, religious groups, they don't care what everybody else does. They just want to be left alone. They're a political party. Just leave us alone. Give us, right? You want to do whatever you want. You want to do it. You just don't infringe on us. But Chabad says, no. We care every Jew. Every Jew has to keep Shabbat. Every Jew will enjoy it, right? True, we're saying that it's something that everyone will want to do on their own. Nobody's going to be forced. But the fact is that little by little we can see, this is the first time I really thought about that the opposition to Judaism among the Jews has gone away. And that's the whole idea of the Mashiach. Chabad pushes Mashiach all the time, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's the Mashiach. And there's very little opposition to this. Very little opposition to this idea. Within the some people scoff at it, some people this, but true opposition. So here we see a little bit maybe of a glimpse, but that's the fact is that all opposition will not exist. It won't be like King David, that everybody was against him and everybody hated him. Mashiach is not going to be that way. And especially when it's revealed, everyone's going to realize, hey, this is good. This is pretty good. This is really
Rabbi, Avi Slavin is trying to get into the room for the last 5 minutes. He just messaged me.
1 second. Oh, yeah, he's hidden behind this thing.
He's been waiting for 5 minutes. He just told me.
Oh, I'm really sorry. It was hidden behind the sign. Do you see, by the way, you're watching this now. Do you see any of these signs popping up? No, you don't see. This one what says clear, redo, save. You don't see that.
I don't see anything.
Oh, good. It's only visible by me. Okay, so there's this big black icon that spreads across 1/3 of the page, and it has all these options about to erase and to draw and all these things. And that covers over the people that are coming in. I'll talk to my son again to do it. Today's Friday. He should be available because usually he works all day and he comes home later. Okay. I'm sorry, Avi. Nothing personal. Here we go. So that's the whole idea of Mashiach. That's the idea of the Mashiach. Will come. That's Malchut of Tiferet. Malchut of Tiferet. That's Malchut means beauty. The whole world depends on the redemption, Malchut of the King Mashiach to be revealed. Okay, like it says in the Gemara, Lo Ivri Alma. The world was only created for 1 minute. I skipped. Here we go. Even deeper. Kevin, since that the whole life and the whole existence of all of the people of every country and everything which is in the country depends on the king. Right? When there's a king, it depends on the king. So nowadays there's no king, so it's a little bit hard to understand. But it's moving, so it's understood. La'amito, that truthfully, everything that's in the world depends on the existence. I mean, is not, it cannot possibly really oppose the Mashiach. Because what's the Mashiach? The Mashiach is coming just to educate the world that there's a creator, and that the creator is creating everybody. So everyone that thinks that they're good, even though let's say that person is totally evil, right? It's Stalin or something, or Mao, Mao Zedong. The guy's totally evil, but he likes himself, right? He likes himself. So if a person that genuinely likes themselves, so it should be, if they're normal, that they're like, they will like their creator. They'll like their creator. True, there is what's called Amalek, and Amalek knows he's being created and he hates his creator. What does Amalek say? True Amalek says, listen, if I'm being created and I can do what I want, and I have the ability to oppose my creator, to spit in my creator's face, to destroy everything that I possibly can, then I'm going to go for it. Why should I be like everybody else? And then I feel great. That makes me feel big. That makes me feel everybody else is just servants. I'm going to be the king. So it says in the one of the things of Mashiach is to kill Amalek, to destroy Amalek. There won't be this awareness that I exist, and awareness that God is creating me, and awareness of how good God is, and on a position to God. It says Makirat Rabbono Makavan Limrodbo, that he knows God and he wants to oppose him. In the days of the Mashiach, if you think about it, everyone will realize, hey, how can I oppose? How can I cut off the limb that I'm sitting on? How can I oppose the Mashiach? Mashiach is just a representative. He's trying to teach me how to serve God. Shahari Kol Metziuto, the whole existence of anything opposing Mashiach, like as it appears in any case, Talui depends on Hamelech, on the Mashiach himself. Everything that's against the king depends on the king. Right? Similarly, Benogea Lagula, that was one of the reasons why Chabad was so against Napoleon. Why Chabad was against Napoleon? Because Napoleon, the first Rebbe of Chabad, Napoleon said that if he wins, it's going to be good for everybody. The Jews, no more exile. Jews are going to be in an equal stand, this footing with everybody else in the world. And he really meant it. Yeah. But what he wanted to kill all the kings. He was going to do away with royalty. There weren't going to be any kings. Before the Napoleon, there was the king of Austria, the king of this, they were the kings. I'm not such a big history expert, as you can see. But nevertheless, that's what he wanted to do, depose all the kings, to defeat all the kings. And all of the kings, they were all Christians, and they were all anti-Semites, big anti-Semites. And all of the great leaders, Jewish leaders, they were with Napoleon. Napoleon was a nice guy. And the first Rebbe of Chabad was opposed to him, Napoleon, tremendously. Why? Because he said, you can't, these kings are evil. They use the kingship for evil, but you can't oppose the whole idea of being a king. And then he made himself into a king anyway, Napoleon. Similarly, Benogea Lageula, for the future redemption. Malchut, the whole idea of the king. That's why the king, Mashiach is going to be a king. Mudgash will stress la mito, and the fact of the matter is there really is no, the world cannot possibly oppose the redemption. A human being cannot possibly oppose life. Now, you can see in the world how one of the steps of Mashiach is that all the bad comes out. That's like this thing of Metzora. We said the Metzora, leprosy, everything, all the bad comes out and it's revealed on the surface. And now it's coming out to be revealed on the surface. There's this whole insane, just this self-destructive and suicidal movement, which is called the woke movement. And the whole essence of the thing is to be anti-life. The whole essence of the thing is to be anti-life. No giving birth, no sexual identification, so there's no man and there's no women, so you can't give birth. That's the main thing. You can't give birth. All these people, the homosexuals and things, none of them give birth. It's a movement to do away with giving birth, to have what's called abortions and sex changes and all this crazy stuff. The whole thing centers around this big crazy obsession with sex, but more not having children. That sex is for you, it's not for anything, not even for children. So it's an opposition to life in proudly being revealed. They have flags and everything, and make parades. It's like all the bad is coming up to the surface and being like clearly revealed. This is an anti-God movement and the anti-life movement. Because God is life. Therefore, nothing really in the world can oppose the Mashiach, because opposing life means you're insane. You're insane. You're opposing your own self. Similarly, nothing can really oppose the future redemption. Ein olam, nothing in the world can really oppose the. Therefore, don't get angry if you want Mashiach and somebody disagrees with you. Nothing's going to stop Mashiach. Kevin Shekol Metzias Olam, the whole existence of the world depends on the revelation of the King, of God. And that's the idea of Geula, freedom. Like it says in the Gemara, Lo Ivri Alma, the world was only created for the sake of Mashiach. And therefore, Hanigud, anything which seems to oppose Mashiach of the world, and anything which seems to oppose the Mashiach, it can only be external alone. Your imagination. And how do you get rid of all this? I mean, it's imaginary, but it's there. I mean, at least it's there in the form of imagination. That's also something. How do we get rid of it? By means of revealing what the world truly is. The world is really truly an expression of God's kingship, just like this leprosy was says is an expression of God's greatness that we just can't accept. So it comes out, Obizgalus Malchus, one that's revealed the kingship of God by means of the Mashiach. Yeshnam, there are many ways. Malchut's kafish, kingship, like it is in all of these 7 aspects. So the 7 aspects: love, fear. There's Malchut, the kingship which is in Chesed, the kingship which is in love, expressing love, kingship which is expressing power, fear, expressing beauty, expressing victory, expressing surrender to the Creator. Malchut should be a soul connecting to the Creator, feeling a deep inner, intimate connection with the Creator of the universe. And Malchut should be Malchut, just the how do you say, just the rulership, the actual rulership of the King, of the Mashiach, changing the world. Alpi Mamor Shel Rebbe, like it says, Rebbe, that's in the beginning of the 2nd chapter of Pirkei Avot. Ezu derech yeshara, what is the straight way that a person should take in this world? Sheidgalu, to be at Mashiach, the revelation of the Mashiach, which is Tiferet. What's Tiferet? We said before, the Torah. It's moving so we can understand the greatness of the kingship of the week of Malchut should be Tiferet, of this week, the coming week. The 3rd week is Tiferet, the kingship of Tiferet. What does Tiferet mean? Beauty, splendor, balance. We said before, Torah. What's the straight way that a man should take? Tiferet la'adam, to use the Torah in a pleasant and a beautiful, a productive, a loving, an awesome way. The Od Be'ikr, and the main thing is, she'ein tzarech lahamtin, we don't have to wait. Lahamshich HaShabbatot, for all of the rest of the Shabbos of Sefirat HaOmer, Kevin said, she'al yidei Malchut Shabbat Tiferet, since by means of this Malchut of Tiferet, this is the straight way that we should take to bring Mashiach. And this is what's called Briach HaTechon, the middle pillar, which was in the tabernacle that went from one end to the other, all the way around. It went, we said the middle, like there was a bolt that kept all these boards together, the walls of the tabernacle. There was a bolt on the top and a bolt on the bottom, and that was on each side. There was a one on the top, one on the bottom. That was on the outside, one on the top and one on the bottom. And then there was in the middle one big bolt that went all the way through, turned the corners, went all the way around. It says that's the Briach Tichon. That's the middle. Tichon means the middle. The middle bolt, which goes from one end to the other. That's the idea of Tiferet, the middle pillar. Beauty, balance. Miroma Milas, it also goes from the highest of the high to the end, the lowest of the lows. This is drawn down and reveals also all the details of Malchut, of the world, which comes afterward, Malchut Shebenetzach, the victory. In this case, he's talking about the Mashiach. All the details of the Mashiach. The beauty of the Mashiach. After the next week is the victory of the Mashiach, Nitzachon Shel Mashiach. I'm victory over all the negative things which are in the world. The Malchut Shebahod, Hod here he says is beauty, but also it means beauty. Hod means also beauty, Yofish of Melech, the beauty of the king. Melech Sheb Yofio Techazeh says the king in his full splendor, your eyes will view. Malchut Sheb Yesod, kingship, which is in the second to the last of the 10 Sefirot. In this case, we're counting 7. So the last 7 Sefirot, which is the Chizuk of Malchut. Yesod means the foundation that'll be firm. The kingship of the king of the Melech Mashiach will be firm and eternal. And Malchut Sheba Malchut, and finally the kingship of kingship, the revelation of God's kingship in all of the worlds. Malchut Malchut Kolamin. Malchut, this is the Malchut of Ein Sof. The infinite essence of God will be before the Tzimtzum, before the creation, will be revealed in all of the worlds. In other words, we'll see the inner intention of everything in the world. Why God made every rock, why God made every bug. But we'll see it, we'll feel it. Hakashura in Keter Shebepanimia to Keter, which is the crown of God, the inside of the crown of God. Remember, we learned about that when we were talking about the circumcision. Remember in the Raiva, the call Raven, we said, and the crown of the crown. Like we said, Keter Elyon, the upper crown of God. This is the crown of kingship, of the crown of the Mashiach. Shenimshechet, that it's drawn down and revealed. The kingship of all of the worlds will be revealed. She'ein tzorich b'memshala. You won't have to have a dictatorship. There's a sentence in Psalms that says, in Psalm 145, it says, Malchutcha, Malchut Kol. Psalm 145 is in alphabetical order. We say it twice, 3 times every day. So it says, Malchutcha, Malchut Kol, Mimshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Your kingship is in, Malchut is in all the worlds, and Memshaltecha, and your rulership is every generation and generation. So there's a difference between God's kingship and God's rulership. In English, it's translated to be a king and to be a dictator. A king rules over the people because they want him. They love the king. They want the king. They respect the king. They want the king to be there. If the king wants to resign, people say, no, don't do it, please. Please, we need you. We love you, king. A king is with the inner will of the people. People want the king. The people coronate the king. A dictator is against the will of the people. A dictator, if the dictator would say, I'm leaving, everybody would say, wow, that's great, right? That's wonderful. Difference between a king and a dictator. As God in the future will be a king. He won't be a dictator. He won't have to rule over the world against people's will. There won't be opposition. I mean, it says one of the first things the king is supposed to do is to make a war against Amalek, to destroy Amalek. Who that is today, only the Mashiach is going to know. But even since the Malchut, that everyone Malchut b'rotzon kiblei leim, everyone will accept the king in their free will. And we have 3 more paragraphs to go, and we have no more time. So what we'll do is, God willing, next week we'll start off with this. We'll start off with this next week, and we'll finish this speech of the Rebbe next week. It's talking about the straight way, the easy way, the accessible way, the practical way, the beautiful way to bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe said, essentially, Mashiach is already here. The Gula is here. We just have to reveal him. That's all we have to do is to reveal. And revealing, says the Rebbe, how do you reveal that? Is in all of your personality, to think about God, to speak about God as it's explained in the teachings of Hasidut. Because the Hasidut are the ideas and the wisdom of the Mashiach. Every Rebbe of Chabad was the Mashiach of his generation. And to incorporate this into your day-to-day life, and to realize how close it is and how wonderful it is, and how essentially what Mashiach is just everybody will be who they really are. It's not going to be everybody's going to be a zombie, or they're going to be lobotomized or something, right? And that everyone is going to, be just exactly like me. Everyone is going to be different, and they're going to express how the beauty of this difference is. But everybody will be the same in the fact that everyone will realize that they're all creations of of God. And that's the idea of the kingship, of the beauty of God's kingship. Malchut of Sefirat, as God willing, we're going to talk about, like I said, next week. We'll finish this next week. Let us now do the Yom Yom. Second. Do this. See, I had to get rid of that thing. I can get rid of this. Okay. You don't know what I'm talking about, but there's this huge icon that stretches across the whole top of the page, and it covers over anyone who wants to come in. And I could have just gotten rid of it very easily because I don't need it. Okay, here we go.
Did you always have that there?
Yeah, it's always there. It always pops up, and I didn't realize that I can just easily get. It's not necessary. Okay, here we go.